2 festivals we discussed. Now we go on to the 3rd festival of the day. Today is the appearance day of Shrinivasa Acharya in the year 1530. So anyway, before this day, we'll go back some years. We have to go back to actually 1510. The year 1510. There was a Brahmin who lived in Chakhandi. Chakhandi is in the district of Nadia. And so he saw the Navadvip pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His name was Gangadhara Bhattacharya. So Gangadhara Bhattacharya was a great devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and in the year 1510, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he left Navadvip, he went to Katwa and he accepted sannyas. So at that time, Gangadhara Bhattacharya, he became mad. And just day and night he was crying, "Ha Chaitanya, Ha Chaitanya, Ha Chaitanya." So because of this, all the people in his village, they gave him a new nickname, Chaitanya Das. So he became Chaitanya Das. And he was always feeling separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He had no attachment to anything in this world. But one day, suddenly, the feeling came in his heart from out of nowhere. I want to have a son. So then he went to his wife. His wife's name was Lakshmi Priya Devi. And he said, some desires come to have a son. His wife said, "Oh, you have to take permission from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first." And he agreed, yes. You should never be independent. Do everything under the guidance of our Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then, one year when the residents of Navadvip were traveling to Jagannath Puri, so Chaitanya Das and his wife Lakshmi Priya, they came to Jagannath Puri, and they came before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when they arrived there at Mahaprabhu's lotus feet, both of them, they gave Dandavat Pranam. And then when they looked up, without even saying anything to Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu said, "Lord Jagannath Dev will fulfill all your desires." So then, the other associates who were there, they were looking at each other. What desires? What is Mahaprabhu talking about? They asked, Govinda was the personal servant of Mahaprabhu. Hey Govinda, what is he talking about? But before Govinda could give an answer, then Mahaprabhu went into a trance, and he was speaking in trance. He said, "This Chaitanya Das desires to have a son. And indeed, his wife will give birth to a great jewel of a son. And his name will be Shrinivasa. He will be the embodiment of my love. He will be none different from me. He will inspire everyone in the path of bhakti. Through Rupa Goswami, through Sanatan Goswami, through Jiva Goswami and others, I will manifest the divine transcendental bhakti shastras. And then, through that Shrinivasa, I will distribute them everywhere." So then, they became very ecstatic. And they returned to their home. And after some time, on this day, in the year 1530, Sri Shrinivasa Acharya appeared in this world. Sri Shrinivasa Acharya ki jai. When the Shrinivasa Acharya was a boy, then his father would tell him so many pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Radha and Krishna. And he sent him to school to study under a pandit named Dhananjay Vidya Vachaspati. And from him he learned Vyakaran, Sanskrit grammar, He learned Sahitya, literature, and the Alankar Shastra, all poetics, and became very, very expert. Then his father passed away, and when his father passed away, he was quite heartbroken. And he moved with his mother back to his maternal, the grandfather's home, and that is in Yajigram. Who's been to Yajigram? Oh, you been? If you go from Navadvip, if you're going to Ekachakra, about halfway between Navadvip and Ekachakra, there is Katwa. And Katwa is on one side and Yajigram is the other. That is the Shripad of Shrinivasa Acharya. So after, now from here, many of his pastimes, they took place there. You can visit that very wonderful place. So during his childhood, he got blessings of so many associates of Mahaprabhu, Srivas Thakur, Janava Thakurani, Vishnu Priya, and Murari Gupta, and especially Narahari Sakar. He was very close, and he held Narahari Sakar in the highest esteem. So after some time, Shrinivasa Acharya became very, very eager to leave his home and go and meet with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. But on the way to Jagannath Puri, then he met with a traveler who gave him the news that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had disappeared from this world. So that time, Shrinivasa Acharya, he wanted to just finish his own life. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared to him in a dream. He said, you should continue on your journey, and you should go to Jagannath Puri, and there you should hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Sri Gadadhar Pandit. So, being encouraged by Mahaprabhu, he continued on his journey, and he came to Puri. There he met with Saurabh Damodar Goswami, Ramananda Rai, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, so many associates of Mahaprabhu. And he met with Sakshat Radha Swarup, directly Shrimati Radhika herself, appearing in Gaur Leela in the form of Gadadhar Pandit, who was serving Gopinath at the Tota Gopinath temple. So he gave his pranam to Gadadhar Pandit, and Gadadhar Pandit was telling the Bhagavad Gita. But Gadadhar Pandit was crying so much in separation from Mahaprabhu that his Srimad Bhagavatam became illegible. He could not see the verses anymore. So he told Shrinivasa Acharya, you should go back to Navadvip, and there's the lipis. They're making copies. In those days, a copy of Srimad Bhagavatam was quite rare because someone would have to scratch the letters onto a palm leaf with an iron pen, 18,000 verses. So it was quite rare and very valuable. So then Shrinivasa Acharya, he set off to get the Bhagavatam. But when he came back, Gadadhar Pandit had left this world. So now he was in great distress. Mahaprabhu again came in a dream and told him, you should go to Vrindavan. So he set out for Vrindavan because Mahaprabhu's most dear associates Rupa and Sanatan are there in Vrindavan. So he set out on foot, traveling through the Prayag, Kashi, and gradually he came to first Kashi, then Prayag, and then he came to Vrindavan. And as you know, when you go to Brajmandal, where do you go first? Mathura first. You go for darshan of Adi Keshav, and you have to take bath at Vishram Ghat. So when Shrinivasa Acharya was bathing in Vishram Ghat, he could overhear some pilgrims, they were talking with each other. And they were saying, oh, alas, Rupa and Sanatan Goswami have left this world. So Rupa Goswami had left, Sanatan Goswami had left, and also Raghunath Bhatta Goswami had left. But who was still in this world? Raghunath Das Goswami, Jiva Goswami, and Gopal Bhatta Goswami. So though Shrinivasa Acharya was very, very disappointed, he went to Vrindavan, and there he came to that pipal tree. Who was there? Gopal Bhatta Goswami worshipping Radha Raman. So, and he took shelter of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. He received the initiation from him. So Shrinivasa Acharya has written very beautiful songs, Krishnot Kirtan Gananatana Paro Premamritam Nidhi. He saw with his own eyes how the Goswamis, what's the first thing that came in his mind when he wanted to glorify them? Krishna Ut Kirtana Gana Nata. They were doing loud kirtan, singing and dancing. Don't think they were just like a bookworms, just sitting, writing and reading all the time. The first thing Shrinivasa Acharya, who was seen with his own eyes, said, they're loudly singing and dancing. Vande Rupa Sanatano Ragujgo Si Jiva Gopalako. He saw how they were doing bhajan, how they were weeping in separation, and how they were very kind in sharing Mahaprabhu's teachings with everyone. So, he took initiation from Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and Gopal Bhatta Goswami suggested to him that he should study under Jiva Goswami. So Shrinivas, and at that time Narottam Das, and also Duki Krishna Das, they were all studying under Jiva Goswami, and they became very, very qualified. One day, Jiva Goswami heard Shrinivas explaining a verse of Rupa Goswami's Ujjva Nilamani. And he became so overjoyed, he was so impressed, that he gave him the title. And he became Shrinivas Acharya. To Narottam, he gave the title Thakur. So he became Narottam Das Thakur. And to Krishna Das, he gave the title Shamananda. So he became Shamananda Pandit. So after some time, the Jiva Goswami, he told them, I want you to take all the manuscripts of all the Goswamis in one bullock cart, and you should take them to Bengal, and there the lipis are there, and they can make copies of them. Because it's very easy. We just call the printer, and then a few days later we have the box with hundreds of books. This is one advantage of this advanced stage of Kali Yuga. But in those days, if you want to do book distribution, everyone has to copy it out by hand, so it's very laborious, and you have to go to a place where the experts are. So Vrindavan was more or less like a jungle with just a few temples in those days. So then, Narottam, Shrinivas and Shamananda, they set out with the bullock cart on the long journey to go to Bengal. So on the way, they'd arrived actually. They were almost at their destination. And they came to the town of Ban Bishnupur. In Ban Bishnupur, there was a king. His name was King Birhambir. And he was a kind of, let's say, multifaceted, complex personality. On the one hand, he really liked Srimad Bhagavatam, but on the other hand, he also liked having a secret gang of thieves that used to go around and plunder anyone who was passing through his village. So, one astrologer told him, some men are coming through. They have a bullock cart. And there's a great, great treasure. There are such great jewels. It's a fabulous wealth. So then he sent his men, on the advice of the astrologer, go and find them. So on the bullock cart there was a sign on the side said, Amulya Dhan, priceless treasure. So the men were searching here and there, and they located it. And they were looking for an opportunity when they could steal it. So they waited till night time, when Narottam, Shrinivas and Shamananda were all sleeping, and they came in the middle of the night, and they took the bullock cart away, along with all the Goswami's books. Okay. The morning came. Before morning, they woke up and looked. Everything was gone. Shrinivasa Acharya wanted to commit suicide. Narottam Das Thakur was ready to enter into a blazing fire. It was a big disaster. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to this world once in a day of Lord Brahma and empowers the Goswamis to manifest all his innermost heart's desires in the form of the Shastra. And it was entrusted to us, and now we've lost everything. It's a great disaster. So Shrinivasa Acharya, he had some inspiration in his heart, and he told the others, be peaceful, be peaceful. Narottam, you should go to Keturi and there give inspiration to the king of Keturi, Santosh Maharaj. Oh, Shamananda, you should go and preach in Orissa. And I'll stay here and I won't leave until I've found all the books. So then they went on their way, and Shrinivasa Acharya, he went to the palace of the king. When he came to the palace of the king, there was a big assembly there. There were so many brahmanas. And the brahmanas were all dressed in fancy silk, very, very beautifully. And Shrinivas, he walked into that court in just some white cloth, all torn white cloth, like a beggar. But the king, when the bullock cart had been stolen, then his men told him, we've captured the treasure, come and see. So then King Birambe, he had gone to that bullock cart, and when he saw the crates on the cart, they seemed to be shining. And he became ecstatic. This is a great wealth. I can feel it. It's so auspicious. And then he opened the cartons with his men, and then he saw the books. The handwriting of Rupa Goswami, like a row of pearls. And Mahaprabhu appreciated his handwriting so much. And when he saw it, he was trembling. On the one hand, he felt ecstatic, there was some spiritual power emanating from these manuscripts. But on the other hand, he realized, I have given pain to some great personalities. And the fire of this offense will eat me. It will devour me. If I can find the person who is the owner of these books, then to save myself, I will have to surrender my life at his lotus feet. So when Shrinivasa Acharya came into that assembly, though he was dressed very simply, but he was shining with effulgence from his deep bhajan. If Krishna is in the heart of anyone, then the light of Krishna is shining from that person's face and from their eyes. So then the king saw him. He didn't say anything, but he was thinking, this is that great personality. It must be. So then, the Brahmanas, they were reciting Srimad Bhagavatam and explaining it. And the king said, stop. I want to hear your explanation. Can you explain this? Shrinivasa Acharya said, what were they telling? The king said, they were discussing Brahmar Geet. Radhika in separation from Sri Krishna when Krishna went to Mathura, speaking with the bumblebee in the madness of love. So then Shrinivasa Acharya began to sing. Madhupa kitava bandho maspashangrim sapatna kuchavelalita kumkumasmasrubina Bahatu marupatistan manininam prasadam yadusadasi bidambam yasudutas tumitrik. Hey Madhupa, bumblebee, you are alcoholic. Madhupa means pibati, one who drinks madhu, alcohol. So if someone drinks alcohol, you should never touch them. They're untouchable. So mas prasangrim sapat, don't touch my lotus feet. Actually at that time, Uddhav had just seen Radhika, and Uddhav said, that must be Sri Radha. And Uddhav bent down to give pranam. So when you give pranam, it's the act of touching that person's feet. So as Uddhav bent down, then he heard, Kitava bandhu mas prashangrim, friend of a cheetah, don't touch my feet. So everything Radhika was saying to the bumblebee, it was like arrow in the heart of Uddhav. He was taking it very personally. Kuchavilalita kumkumasmasrubirna. Oh, bumblebee. What is that red powder on your antenna? I know what it is. Because see, Krishna, he's meeting with his new girlfriend in Mathura. And he's wearing a beautiful garland of flowers. And when she embraced him, then the kumkum, the cosmetic from her breast, smeared onto his garland. And then you came and you landed on the garland and you were taking the honey from the flowers. And now all the cosmetic from Krishna's new beloved is all over your antenna. The bumblebee said, no, I have come from Mathura. And for a little bumblebee like me, it's a very long distance. So on the way, I became so thirsty. So I stopped off. I took a little break and landed on a lotus flower to drink some nectar there, so I could continue on my journey. And this is how I got covered with the parag, the pollen of the lotus flower. Radhika said, oh, I don't believe you. I know you are Kitavaban, you are the friend of a cheetah. So the friend of a cheetah is also a cheetah. You know, but the friend of the cheetah is worse, because if there's one cheetah, then he can trick you. But you may see through his tricks. But if a cheetah has a friend, and that friend is also telling the same lies as him, it's more convincing and you cannot figure out what the truth is. When cheetahs come together. So Radhika was criticizing the bumblebee. Bahatu madu patistam manininta prasadam. Don't try to pacify me. You should go back to Mathura. I'm sure there are some heroines of Krishna who is upset because he always upsets everyone. You should go and pacify them. Yadu sadasi vidambyam yasya dutas tamitrik. You are just like your master. I'm sure Krishna, he's coming into the assembly of the Yadus and his garland is crushed. He has some lipstick on here. He has some eyeshadow, some eyeliner on his lips. And he's so intoxicated that he doesn't even know. So he's trying to hide his behavior, but everyone can see it and they're all laughing at him. So Yasyadu Tastavidrik. That Krishna will be a laughing stock. And because also he has a messenger like you have come here to tell us, oh, Krishna is your beloved. He only thinks of you day and night. He never thinks of anyone else. And you have the cosmetics of his new girlfriend all over your face. So Krishna will be criticized and all will laugh at him. And because he has a messenger like you. Krishna is like Chuchundra. Chuchundra means a muskrat.
What's the word, sorry?
Chuchundra. Chuchundra.
That's a Russian word also.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
My wife tells me Chuchundra, so I was like, what's that?
Well, now you know. I think probably in Russian it doesn't mean muskrat.
I don't think so.
So, Radhika told the bumblebee, Krishna is like a chuchundra, a muskrat. When he meets with his beloved, he's meeting with his beloved in a hidden place. And he's thinking, oh, now I am secretly enjoying. No one knows. But the problem is, the fragrance of the muskrat at that time, it spreads everywhere. And from far away, they can smell the fragrance of the muskrat. Oh, there's a muskrat there and meeting with his beloved. So Radhika said, you are trying to say that Krishna is only thinking of us and he's day and night remembering us and not meeting with anyone else. But actually, he is like a chuchundar. And you, bumblebee, you're like his fragrance. So by coming here, you have revealed, we know what Krishna is doing because you are here, just by seeing you. Radhika spoke so many very wonderful, beautiful verses, and Shrinivasa Acharya was telling this. And hearing the sweet katar of Brahmar Geet, the king was crying, all the brahmanas were crying. And the king got up and he fell down at the feet of Shrinivasa Acharya. And he begged him, please accept me as your disciple. And the king became his disciple, and all his ministers became his disciples also. Afterwards, the king came alone to Shrinivasa Acharya and said to him, oh, Gurudev, tell me, why did you come to the palace? Shrinivasa Acharya said, well, I was traveling with my associates with a bullock cart. full of priceless scriptures. And he described how Sri Krishna himself, after performing his Leela, appeared again with all of his Braj associates and inaugurated the Sankirtan in Navadvip Dham. And then afterwards he empowered Rupa Goswami and the other Goswamis to manifest his innermost our heart's desires, and they were written in the form of these Shastras, and we were bringing them to copy here, but on the way they were all stolen. So then the king admitted, "Oh, it was my men, they have done it. Please forgive me, please forgive me. Come with me." And then he took him, and then Shrinivasa Acharya, he found all the books. So then the king, he said, "Look, the men who came with you," because some Brijbasis also came with them to protect the bullock cart, but they didn't do very well. So the king says, we'll get our men to copy all these books and you can distribute everywhere, and this bullock cart can go back to Vrindavan. And he gave so much jewels and cloth and ornaments, and he said it can go back, and these cloth and ornaments can be for the service of Madan Mohan, Govinda and Gopinath in Vrindavan. So that episode concluded in the most satisfactory way. Then Shrinivasa Acharya, he returned to his the place of his former home before he had renounced the world. And when he was there, Narahari Sakar told him, "Oh, you should be married." So then he accepted that because he had great respect for Narahari Sakar, and he married two wives. One, her name was Ishwari, and the other one, Srimati Gauranga Priya Devi. So he was married. Why? Because the Lord wanted to create the arrangement for the appearance of his daughter, Hemalata Thakurani. And also his great-great-grandson. Who was that? Radha Mohan Thakur. You know who has written Saki Kalaya Gauram Udaram and Bande Vishwambara Parakamlam. And also when there was a crisis in the Gaudiya Sampradaya over the subject of Swakiya and Parakiya, Vishwanath Thakur, he solved it in Vrindavan. But it was Radha Mohan Thakur who, there was a big debate and court case in Bengal, and he established the superiority of Parakiya Ras over Swakiya Ras there. So Shrinivasa Acharya now, he was staying with his family at his Sripat in Yajigram. And his pastimes there are so wonderful. One day, he was chanting Harinam. And as he became absorbed in his samadhi, he saw that he was in Navadvip Dham. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was sitting on a beautiful golden throne amidst the Panchatattva. And Shrinivasa Acharya, he came there and he worshipped Mahaprabhu with sandalwood paste. And then he decorated Mahaprabhu with a very beautiful flower garland. And then he took a chamar and he was fanning Mahaprabhu. And he was rendering this very beautiful, loving service. And Mahaprabhu reciprocated with him, and he took off that garland and he gave it back to Shrinivasa Acharya as his prasadi, as his Mahaprasad. So then when Shrinivasa Acharya, he stopped chanting japa and he opened his eyes, that very garland that he'd given Mahaprabhu in his meditation, he saw he was wearing it. Mm-hmm. And the fragrance was so transcendental and so astonishing that swarms of bumblebees were coming from all directions towards that garland. And because he's very humble, he thought, "Oh, I'll have to hide it before anyone sees it." So then he took it off and he hid it. But someone saw it, and that's why this story came to us today. Otherwise, he would never have told anyone. On another day, Shrinivasa Acharya was sitting and chanting Harinam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And he experienced that he was in Vrindavan, in his Swarup. What Swarup? Who is he in Brajalila? Mani Manjari. Yes. Actually, it's not mentioned that which verse of Ujjwala Mani. Shrinivasa Acharya was explaining that Jiva Goswami became so impressed he gave him the title of Acharya. But I'm thinking, in Ujjwala Mani there's a verse about Mani Manjari. Perhaps it was that verse. Because he'd be most qualified to explain that verse, because it's the verse about Mani Manjari. So he experienced internally, he had a very beautiful Manjari Swarup. What is a Manjari Swarup? Sri Radha Pada Padma Chavi Madhurataya Prema Chits Jyotirekam Bodhe Udbhuta Penastava Kamayitanum Sarva Vaidagya Purnaha Kaishora Vyamditasthar Ganaruga Pagana Sri Chamatkar Bhajo Divyarankar Vastra Anusarasa Sake Radhika Kinkaristaha. Srila Prabhupada Saraswati Thakur says, "O Sakhi, O friend, take shelter of the Kinkaris, the maid servants of Srimati Radhika." Why? The lotus feet of Radhika are so effulgent. There's a light of Prem emanating from her lotus feet that condenses and condenses and becomes like an ocean. And that ocean is turbulent with high waves. And when the high waves in the ocean of the condensed Prem emanating from the lotus feet of Radhika crash down, then the foam flies up into the air. Udbhuta pena, stavakamayatunu. And that foam makes the bodies of the Kinkaris. The Manjaris. They are the foam from the waves of the ocean of Prem emanating from the feet of Srimati Radhika. They are so beautiful. They are so expert in all arts. And they are decorated also with Radhika's prasadi cloth and ornaments. Because when Radhika is pleased, then she gives her remnant cloth, ornaments, sometimes tambu. So, Shrinivasa Acharya was experiencing himself having such a Kinkari Swarup as Mani Manjari. And what was happening? It was Holy Lila. Holy was going on. So many Sakhis were playing different instruments. And the earth was filled with the sound of the musical instruments. And Radha Krishna and so many gopis were there. And they had different colored powders and they were throwing at each other and squirting each other with pitchkari. So the earth was filled with the sounds of the kirtan. And the sky was filled with the many colored powders of the holy. The trees became red, the flowers became red, the bumblebees flying here and there, everything was red. See, Krishna was throwing colored powder on the gopis, and on the pretext of wrestling the pitchkaris, what are they called, super soakers, pitchkaris? They're for spraying water. On the pretext of trying to wrestle the pitchkaris from the hands of the gopis, he was embracing them and kissing them, gradually fighting his way through one phalanx after another of gopis on his way towards Srimati Radhika. And when Sri Krishna came closer to Radhika, then he was trying to dye Radhika with the colors also. And Radhika was also throwing colors at Krishna, but she was running out of ammunition. So Mani Manjari, she got an order from Lalita Sakhi. Oh, you have to supply Radhika with more colors. Because she has like bombs, grenades. They made a very soft lac, with parag, flower pollen inside. So when you throw them, it looks like a ball, but when it hits you, it explodes into a cloud of colors. So then Mani Manjari, she saw she was there, and she was supplying Radhika with more bombs of parag to throw at Krishna. After some time, when this pastime was completed, then Shrinivasa Acharya came out from his trance, and he saw that his white dhoti was all covered with the same colors. So this shows that actually this manasik seva is not imagination. is actually direct experience of the reality. And sometimes the Vaishnavas from that realm, they bring something back into this realm also. We'll finish Prajari, 8 o'clock we'll finish, yeah? Good? So then, on another day, Shrinivasa Acharya was sitting and chanting Harinam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Whole day, he did not stop. Whole night, he did not stop. The next day, the whole day, he had actually got into a trance, and so outwardly he was not chanting. He was so deep in samadhi, he was just sitting, and he was hardly breathing. And his wives, Gaurangi Priya and Ishwari, they were crying. Our husband, he's hardly breathing. He did not eat or sleep for 2 days. We think that maybe he will go in the Nitya Lila now. So they were very disturbed, and they called his very dear close disciple Ramachandra Kaviraj. And they said, "Oh Ram, please tell us what we should do in this emergency." Ramachandra Kaviraj said, "Don't be disturbed, I'll find out." So then he put down an asana next to his Gurudev and took his japamala and began to chant. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And he also went into samadhi. When Ramachandra Kaviraj went into samadhi, he saw he has a very beautiful swarup as the Karun Manjari. Karun Manjari saw she was in a forest. Nana pushpat lata batta vriksha sanda chaistamanditam. All around were beautiful trees, and the trees were being embraced by flowering creepers. Bumblebees were humming. Peacocks were spreading their feathers and dancing here and there. Cuckoo birds were calling in the trees, and parrots were singing the glories of Radha Krishna. It was a very beautiful forest, and in the distance, she could hear the laughter of so many Sakhis. Following the sound of laughter, she came onto the bank of Radha Kund. She saw Radha Krishna were here and so many Sakhis were laughing, but she saw 3 Manjaris were standing on the bank of Radha Kund, and they were looking very worried. So she was concerned, and she walked over to them, and one of them said, "Oh look, there's a Mani Manjari. Today, when Radhika was playing in the water, she lost her favorite nose ring in the water. So Mani Manjari has been many hours trying to find it." So then Karun Manjari, being the disciple of Mani Manjari in this world, and there they are Sakhis. So she dived into the water to help her Guru Rupa Sakhi. So they were going down again and again and looking around. And after some hours, then Karun Manjari, she found the nose ring. "Oh, I have it here." And she gave it to Mani Manjari. Then Mani Manjari took the nose ring and went to Radhika and put the nose ring in the nose of Srimati Radhika. So then afterwards, Rupa Manjari came to Mani Manjari and said, "Psst, come here." And she had one leaf. And on that leaf she said, "Srimati Radhika has secretly given me some of her chul tambul for you, because she's so pleased that you found her nose ring." So then Rupa Manjari gave this leaf with the chul tambul, and Mani Manjari, she just took a little bit. She said, "Actually, Karun Manjari found it," so she took a little bit and she gave the rest to Karun Manjari. So then Karun Manjari, she was tasting that tambul remnant of Radhika, and so many ecstatic bhavs were coming from that Maha Prasad. And then in that ecstasy, back here in this world, both Shrinivasa Acharya and Ramachandra Kaviraj opened their eyes. So his family members were watching, and they were so happy, because now 3 days had passed with no food, no water, no sleep or anything. So they had been in great anxiety, but now both of them came out from the trance, and they said to Ramachandra Kaviraj, "Tell us everything, what happened?" So then Ramachandra Kaviraj, he told the wives of Shrinivasa Acharya what had happened, and said, "You should not be alarmed, but he could not come back. until he had finished his seva for Srimati Radhika. So then they became very ecstatic. So in Ujjwal Nilamani there, Srila Rupa Goswami Pad has given a very beautiful verse. Tvaya yad upabhujate murajidanga sange sukam tameva bahu janati swamavaptita shuddhati maya kritaya vilobanapyati adhikachaturi charyaya kadapi mani manjri na kurute abhisarj priham. Meaning is this: one day Radhika told one Saki, go to Mani Manjari and arrange for Abhisar to take her through the forest to a secret meeting with Krishna. So then that Saki went to do her seva, and then after some time she came back to Radhika and she's speaking this verse. Oh Radhika, I went to Mani Manjari and I told her, oh, you should come and meet with Krishna. Radharani herself is sent me. But Mani Manjari Shuddhadi, she has such a pure heart. She said, no. I get much greater happiness by watching through the lattice windows of the Nikunja and seeing the meeting of Radha and Krishna. I get much more happiness than this if I were to meet with Krishna myself. She said, how do you know? You have met with him. Meeting with Krishna is the highest happiness. Lalita is the Radhika Saki, and though she's a Saki, she also sometimes meets with Krishna, so why not you? Why do you always make yourself a Lagu, insignificant person? You should also meet. But she never agreed. And when Radhika heard this, she was so overjoyed, thinking, oh, just see, such a nishtha, such loyalty in me. So, the Sakis are like this. When they meet together with Krishna, then they always act in a very contrary way. Like, we don't want to meet with you. Oh, Radhika should also not meet with you. You're a very bad boy. But then a wave of love first comes in the Sakis. And they persuade Radhika, then why you should meet with him. So then Radhika, she becomes a little bit submissive to Krishna. And as soon as Radhika becomes a little bit submissive, then Krishna immediately does something naughty. And then so the first wave of Prem comes in the Sakis to inspire Radhika to meet with Krishna. The next wave of Prem comes in Radhika. Okay, I agree. And then the next wave of love comes in Krishna, and he does something quite notorious and reprehensible. And then the fourth wave of love comes again back in the Sakis because they relish this. Oh, no, don't touch her. Sometimes Krishna tries to catch the Manjaris also. Ananya Sri Radha Pada Kamala Dasya Ikarasadi Hare Sangai Rangam Swapana Samayena Pi Dadati Balat Krishna Kurpa Sakabidi Adhikachaturi Charya Pyadyaso Me Veti Pralapati Mahatma Chahasati. Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur said, the maidservants of Radhika, they are one-pointed in their devotion to the lotus feet of Radhika. They don't want to meet with Krishna directly themselves, even in their dreams. And sometimes Krishna will come and catch them by the choli, by the bodies, and try to tear open their bodies. And that time they say, Mama, don't touch me, don't touch me. And seeing this, Radhika is laughing. And Radhika comes and saves and hides that maidservant behind herself. So this is the nature of Radhika and the Sakis. They're always very contrary to Krishna, but then they're also always changing their moods and changing their mind. Neecha pranana palota Saki jo doli ke pan. Just like a person who has a pan stool. They have tambul leaves. They always have to splash water on it and keep turning them over. So just as the pan seller is always turning over his betel leaves, the Sakis are always changing their mind. Radhika, no, I don't want to meet with him. Yes, I do. But then when she says, no, I don't want to meet with him. The Sakis, don't touch our Saki. And then the next minute they set up a trap that Radhika is alone with Krishna, and then they disappear. Radhika is protecting her Manjaris, and then the next minute she sets up a trap that the Manjaris get caught by Krishna. And also her Sakis, Lalita, Vishaka and others. So like this, they all say Krishna is very bad, we don't want to associate with him. But in their heart, they want that Radhika will meet with him. And Radhika is always protecting the maidservants and so on. But now and then, they're also changing their moods and making tricks and traps for each other. So be very careful. Though Vrindavan Dham is the realm of the absolute truth, everyone there is a liar. Don't trust them. They're always lying. So be careful. Satya Pratam Satya Param Trisatyam. Krishna is Satyabrata. He is the absolute truth. And his realm is the absolute truth. But Brijbasis, they're always lying. So be careful. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.